Our support team has grown to be, I think, one of the best support teams around. We have four franchise consultants supporting all of our franchisees generally. And then we have some very specific support areas that we help with because we have a lot of people who are in like heavy growth mode right now. We've opened up 70, 60 or 70 franchises over the past 2 years. So those people are in high growth mode. They're bringing on new team members all the time. So we're standing there helping them in any way that we can.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to the latest edition of Fran Coach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of Fran Coach and your podcast host. Today, we're going to welcome one of our franchise partners here to talk about their brand. Today's featured franchise is part of the home service category that we commonly refer to as enhance. As with most non-retail franchises, this has a lower overhead and investment, easier to ramp up and scale, and provides a service that we tend to take for granted, even though it usually surrounds us. Could that be a hint? Maybe. But before we get to this amazing franchise opportunity, quick reminder of who we are. Fran Coach is a national search firm dedicated to working with individuals like yourself interested in owning a franchise. We are partnered with well over 600 of the top franchisors in the country, spanning nearly 70 industries. Our number one goal is to help properly educate people on franchise ownership to help them determine if this is the right path for them. And if so, then we're going to focus on helping you find the absolute best fit for you. All right, so that's a little bit about us. Now let's get to the good stuff today. Joining us, this franchise is so amazing. We can't have one person. We need two to be on here today. So joining us today is Zach Peyton, and Zach is the brand president. And then Pete Trexler, and he's the director of franchise development for our featured franchise, Superior Fence and Rail. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Tim.
So, want to always, before we jump into all of the amazing things about Superior, franchising is a people business. I like to kind of get to know the people a little bit. So how in the world, Zach, I'll throw this at you. Like, how'd you get into franchising? Give us a little, the Zach story.
Yeah, so I started with Superior Fence and Rail in 2009, right? The concept started in the early 2000s and was originally founded by a guy by the name of Chris Johnson. And Chris moved to Orlando from Atlanta and bought a small fence company, rebranding it, and it was going to be kind of his placeholder business that he bought and operated until he figured out what he really wanted to do with his life. And he found out that he really liked the fence business. He did really well with it. And in the 2000s, he added 5 more locations, mainly around Central Florida, with the exception of the one up here in Jacksonville, where I currently live in North Florida. So he needed an operating partner up here. So I came on and I was the operating partner for Superior Fence and Rail of North Florida. We operated under a licensing agreement at that time. And so 2009, was not a great year to get into business. Certainly not a great year to get into the construction business, but I did it anyways. And just by kind of, I think, sheer force of will and a little bit of luck, we made it through that year. And then, sort of the subsequent kind of anemic recovery years from 2009 to 2012. And after we opened it in Jacksonville, there was no further expansion until we started franchising. So fast forward to 2016, my business, out of all of the Superior locations, had grown to be the largest, and was operating really well. And Chris, came to me one day and said, "Hey, look, I've always wanted to continue to expand the brand. I'd like to do so through franchising." And he thought that what I had in Jacksonville was sort of the operational playbook that we needed to go by. So that was really it. He asked me if I wanted to partner up with him. And I did a little bit of research and figured out that no one had ever successfully franchised the fence business in the United States up to that point. So it seemed like a bit of a risk, but my justification for saying yes was we were going to shoestring it, right? So we didn't have a big budget. We were going to fund everything, operationally out of our two businesses, the business that he was running in Orlando and mine in Jacksonville. And then I thought, well, heck, if nothing else, it'll improve my own business because I'll come up with a better operating manual that'll be useful for my own business. I wanted to do a software project to do a custom app. That's I didn't see any harm in that, So so in 2017 we decided to start franchising, and then we sold our first few franchises in 2018, a few more in 2019, added a bunch more in 2020 and 2021, and then we were acquired by Empower Brands at the end of 2021. And here I am 2 years later. We've again doubled in size, and I think we've doubled in size and almost tripled in system-wide sales since we came on with Empower Brands at the end of 2021. So it's been a good journey so far,
Awesome. Very nice. And like most everybody, with getting into franchising without the intent of getting into franchising, and then you're stuck, you're here. So, love it. Pete, give us the Pete scoop.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Much like a lot of the people I work with today, I was looking for an exit from the corporate operations world, and in 2020, felt like 2020 was a good year to do the opposite of what the world was doing, and I bought a franchise in 2020 in the home service space, and really enjoyed small business ownership and entrepreneurial spirit, and got it to semi-absentee last year, and then and put it up and waited for someone to come knocking, and someone did last year. And during that journey, I had a lot of peers inside of Empower. Scott Zide actually helped me. About 6 months in, I was running so fast I didn't know how well I was doing or if we were going in the right direction. I'd met him through a mutual friend, had no idea of the full breadth of his knowledge and experience. He came and helped me very early on, midway, and then later on towards the exit. And once the exit was finished, it felt pretty natural to knock on Empower's door and see what was there. And so here I am with representing a fantastic brand.
Awesome. Very, very, very cool. I want to talk a lot about, obviously, Superior Fence and Rail, your owners, all the different support mechanisms. We've had Scott Zide on a few months ago just about Empower in general and about how amazing they are. But start with the really basics with this. So Zach, tell us, I'm not the smartest dude in the world, but the word fence is in the name of the franchising. So I'm guessing there's something fence related. So talk a little bit about kind of what the business does and who are those customers.
Yeah, our primary customers that we're targeting coming right out of the gate with a new franchise are going to be homeowners, right? People who are looking to have somebody do it for me, right? The do it for me crowd. So they're out there looking for a professional fence company to help them either replace a fence that's fallen over at their house or put up a new fence. We do a lot of privacy fences, a lot of wooden and vinyl privacy fences, a lot of ornamental, sort of like the wrought iron look, aluminum and steel fences, and even some good old fashioned chain link every now and again. So that's the primary group that we're targeting right out of the gate. And depending on the skill level and background of the owner, right, the franchisee that's operating the business, they can expand outward from there into commercial applications. That's where sort of like the and rail comes in. We don't do a lot of residential railing, but we do a ton of commercial railing, especially at the locations where commercial operations have taken off. So, and business fences for businesses can be anything from a commercial property owner who needs a new fence at their property, they'll look much in the same way that a homeowner will look. And then, we do negotiated bid work with general contractors and larger scale stuff. We've done federal work, state work. So it's a really interesting. It's an interesting aspect of the fence business, just how many facets there are to sort of expand into. I like to tell my owners, like, hey, don't buy other businesses when you get bored with residential fencing. Just open up a new division of your fence company. I mean, we've built up the corporate locations. I forget what the FDD says right now, but between Jacksonville and Oviedo, we're running about $23 million a year in annual revenue, which is just phenomenal. And I think that's one of like the things that I really love about our franchise in particular is, I mean, anybody can kind of say it, like, pay lip service to the opportunity, right? Like, oh, this is a great opportunity. Trust me, it's a great opportunity. But I can show people, I could take them here. We have 3 locations in Jacksonville. One facility that's just for powder coating some of the custom metal work that we do, which is another facet of the industry. So it's really interesting to talk about the opportunity with people and then say, oh, hey, by the way, come on over here and take a look at it, and see what we've done. And people see the numbers in the FDD, and they're really eye popping, especially for some of the locations that we've had open for 3, 4, and 5 years now since we got started. So
it's one of those things. And I think probably in home service this happens a lot, but it's hidden right in front of your face, right? Of like fence, and then you start driving around, right? And you see it, and it's just it's everywhere, and it's been one of those things that stuck. Literally, my first job, real job, well, quote, real job out of college was literally for a fence company. Because I was all set to go into coaching, and it fell through. And I had a friend of mine from high school, and he's still in the fence industry decades later. And I didn't know the first damn thing about it, right? And then you're like, fence, where's fence? And it was everywhere. And it was like, even in some of the commercial things, like one of the last things I did before I left, and I totally screwed it up, was like a Walmart. You're like, how's their fence at Walmart? And then now you start like, and this was 30 years ago, but all the different things that were in there, or it's a rail or whatever, was just, it's amazing. It's like how like, again, it's one of those things we don't necessarily think about. And I'm sure, just like you mentioned, Zach, when people come to see it and they're like, oh, right. Like kind of an eye-opening thing with this. And then I'm sure for you guys, like no different than most home services, you don't need an owner. You don't need my buddy with 30 years experience in the fence industry. You need, because you're not out there like installing the fence, right? Talk about some of the things that you really look for in an owner and kind of what that day in a life looks like for them.
Yeah, I mean, I love owners who have experience in small business or in leadership in blue collar industries, or both. I mean, some of our best operators have come from backgrounds like that. Like our, one of our most successful franchisees that's opened up lately, opened up in Eastern North Carolina and, Greenville, North Carolina. Right. And, like, just to look at the revenue numbers that he put up in year one, and I got to take a look at his bottom line, because I get to see their financials. It's just amazing. And his background was from a very similar industry, managing blue collar. So like the idea of like managing blue collar guys coming in the morning, and vehicles and a fleet and all that stuff, like that was kind of second nature to him. So he could really focus on the business of selling and marketing and all the other things that he's done to have such a successful first year. Same thing with, our guys in Charlotte. The guy came from a NASCAR fabrication shop. Our guys in Cleveland, one of those guys was running a metal fabrication shop. The guy in San Diego, has one of the more interesting small business backgrounds. He owned a movie theater, and that was all he was talking about the very first time I met him, was like how he owned this movie theater, and he had this real eclectic personality. And I stopped him. I was like, Bob, like what? Like, what's your other business experience? He's like, oh yeah, well I ran a CNC shop, like a fabrication shop. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're gonna love this business, because one of our key items that almost every single location has is a CNC router for fabricating vinyl fence. So, we're looking. I mean, I wish I could say that out of like sort of like the typical franchisee profile for I think a lot of franchises. I think we have a lot of that. We've got corporate refugees. We've got some foreign investors. We've got former military. We've got just a really interesting mix of folks. But I think the common theme that I've seen is folks who have that tie to a blue collar management background, and also people who have owned small businesses. They tend to do really well.
Gotcha. What's because you're not really looking for owners to be out there installing the fence all day long. They're managing the team that's doing that and really kind of running the marketing side of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, so our owners are pretty hands-on, for probably the first like 3 to 6 months. Because look, they're establishing the business. They start out with somebody working in the office, an installation crew, a sales rep, and maybe somebody to work in the shop to receive orders. And so it's a fairly small team at first. And when one of those people decides that they're not going to come to work today or has something come up, it's like, all right, well, I guess Joe didn't show up, so I'm going to go out and help the crew get this job finished. Or Mike didn't show up to work, so I've got to go take his sales appointments for the day. It's your typical sort of like small business owner environment at first. But what my goal is for every single location is for the business to grow to a size where the owner can define their participation and decide how they want to participate in the business, or just spend all of their time primarily working on the business. Right. So I think it's unique in that regard, and we can get people there pretty quick. Again, I don't know what the current FDD says, but last year said that after year one, they're at 1.8 million, after 2.8 million, after 3.8 million. So that's a business where you can say, okay, this is what I want to do today. You don't have to work in that business. You can spend all of your time being the business owner and working on that business. So it's more of an executive model. But at first you've got to establish the business and get in there and get your hands dirty. I mean, I spent probably too long doing that when I got started, but I've seen owners, and it all depends on the mix of people that they recruit in. Some people get lucky and they get great crews right away. They get great sales teams right away. They've really got to fill in the gaps until they establish a great team in really every aspect of the business,
Hey everyone, I want to take a moment to spotlight an exciting offer from our partners at Reshift Media. Reshift Media's Brand Amplifier is an award-winning digital marketing platform designed to fit the specific needs of franchise organizations. The dashboard allows national and local teams to quickly and easily manage social content and digital advertising across dozens, hundreds, even thousands of locations. The Brand Amplifier will use automation and machine learning to help franchise systems save time and dramatically improve their digital marketing performance. When a campaign is activated, the Brand Amplifier automatically geo-targets advertising to potential customers around each store and will insert local information such as city, neighborhood, or pricing, which will increase both relevance and performance. Launching a campaign takes less than 5 minutes. It's just that easy. And franchise companies that use the Brand Amplifier routinely see a 500% or more increase in digital performance. That's amazing, folks. Over 500% increase. And best of all, the Brand Amplifier team is currently offering a 50% off for a limited time. So be sure to visit brandamplifier.io to lock in that deal today and tell them Fran Coach sent you. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, And guys, let's be honest, you're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more. Are you guys open to somebody starting off semi-absentee, or do you need somebody to be full-time?
We've had, we probably have 15 to 20% of our owners are somewhere along the spectrum of absentee. There's a little bit more risk there, right? Because, you have to hire a really good general manager who treats the business like it's their own.
Right.
And I've seen some people just knock that out of the park with the folks that they've hired. And it's amazing. And I interact with their general managers as if they're partners in the business, and they treat it as if they're partners in the business, and they really have a high level of ownership about the business and the results. And then I've seen those GMs turn over in businesses as well, and I've seen how expensive it can be because they make a bunch of mistakes up to the point, and then they have to exit the business. So I've seen it both ways. But yeah, we're certainly open to people, coming in either fully absent, semi-absent, or, somewhere along the way.
Gotcha. So what are we looking for from a kind of a staff and stuff, right? So you mentioned, obviously we got the installers, you mentioned, maybe even a little bit of a facility. Talk to us what that's going to look like. Somebody's doing the sales, somebody's doing the installations. There's some stuff. What do we have kind of at the beginning to get this thing going?
Yeah. So, I mean, the basic team is kind of, as I described it, right? You have an administrative person who's dealing with customers, and then dealing with jobs as those start to come into the pipeline, right? And you can have, just one person for I'd say at least the first year and a half doing the admin position, right? And then you start to build that team as the business scales. The installation crew is typically 2 to 4 people, right? Out there digging holes and mixing concrete and building fence, right? The salesperson, those have been, I think, in my experience, along with the admin person, some of the easier folks to find. If we just need somebody with a good background, and we can teach them how to sell fence, right? And the franchise owner are usually highly participative in the sales process for the first couple of months anyways, because there's not much else going on, right? You sell for probably 6 weeks before you even install a job, because you sell your first job, you have to source the product, get all the permits and applications put through. I mean, sometimes when we sell a fence, it's not ready to be installed for 60 days. And that's in no part due to our supply chains or anything else. It's just the permits and the homeowners association approvals and all that. And then the business gets big enough typically right away to require somebody to be in the shop or the warehouse, receiving orders and picking orders and making sure everything's ready to go for the crew for the next day. So that's pretty much the people. And then the owner kind of plugs in wherever they feel like they're needed, or wherever they want to work, And then as far as stuff, the inventory requirements can vary by location, and those can, most of the time be funded by the deposits that we take from customers, right? So if we go out and sell, let's say $100,000 in the first 6 weeks of selling, we're going to get, up to $50,000 in deposits, and we can typically use that money to fund the initial most of the initial inventory buy. Although we're buying in bulk to get the best prices, so there's some maybe two tractor trailer loads of product that are purchased right away. We have most of our locations have a CNC vinyl router to fabricate vinyl fence, which is about, let's say, a $30,000 piece of equipment. And then, they'll have a truck, a trailer for the install team, maybe another truck for the the owner or the warehouse person to ferry stuff out to a job site if they need additional product. And then a forklift for unloading trucks. And really the install tools that you need are
Right.
Probably $10,000 to $15,000 along with some miscellaneous shop stuff. So not a huge requirement. I think our initial investment, Pete, is about $175K on the low end.
Yeah, that's mid-range. Early entry is at 130, and the high end is at 210. But as you mentioned, Zach, depending on that initial inventory investment, that'll really, that'll pay dividends pretty quick.
Well, it sounds like in home service, there's some things that really is like, it could be like the owner and maybe one person. Nothing wrong with starting a little smaller. You guys are kind of like home service plus. Like, we're not going crazy like we're food service and a big retail location and 25 people and crazy inventory. But this is a robust business, and Zach, as you threw out some of those revenue numbers per the FDD, like, that's no joke, right? Like, your owners are able to build. And again, by no means is anything easy, right? People, let's just get that. Like, it's hard work, but this is something you can really grow a big business with, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Like at our annual conference, next week, right? It's next week, right, Pete? So at our annual conference next week, we're going to give out awards, right? And our awards this year are going to be revenue clubs, right? And so there's going to be a $20 million revenue club. There's going to be a $15 million revenue club, a $10 million revenue club, and a $5 million revenue club, right? Like, wow. You have to get to $5 million in revenue in order to get on the stage at the annual conference, right? So yeah, it's a big business. They're big numbers, really big numbers. And I'm super proud of the franchisees and the support teams that we have in place to be able to get to the point where we can say, like, hey, yeah, this is a great model, and like, look at the results, Yeah. So it is a complicated business. It is not something where you can just, be the one man band, playing the drums and the harmonica and,
right.
That's not how it works.
And I think that's the beauty of franchising, right? Is that there's not a one size fits all, right? So some people like the smaller, maybe one, owner plus one, and that hits their goals. That's awesome. This is something this isn't simple. It's a more complex, more robust, and able to really have a little bit of a team, some stuff, a place, and build a huge thing. So,
that's right.
Zach, you kind of went down this path a second ago, or kind of mentioned it because I wanted to touch on support and from Superior, number one, but also from Empower. And I know you guys could go for like the next hour talking about all of the things from a support mechanism and standpoint to help your franchise owners, but hit a couple highlights that you think really kind of stand out for you in the ways that you're able to help your owners succeed.
Well, I think that marketing support has got to be one of our sort of, I don't want to say our hidden strengths, but look, we're not like Chick-fil-A where everybody knows us and then they see there's a Chick-fil-A going up and like there's a line around the street the next day. It's not,
right.
You know what I mean? Right. So I think that the marketing is been a critical piece of the pie, right? And we've been super duper focused on direct lead gen for our owners. We're transitioning to a point where we're able to start focusing like higher up on the funnel but I mean, we've poured a ton of resources, all of our energy into the lower part of the funnel, like just trying to catch people as they're looking for fences, right? And then funnel them to the franchisees and let them take it from there. So the marketing support's been awesome. I do think that we have good education systems, so it's a lot for these franchisees to learn in the first couple months. It's it's the whole cliche of drinking from a fire hose, but no, really, it's like drinking from a fire hose. They when I talk to them 6, 9, 12 months down the road, they're like, it's amazing how much I've learned in such a short period of time about fencing. And it's one thing to see the fences all around you, but then to learn all of the things about all the fences all around you and how they're constructed, and what are good, what types of lumber are out there, what grades of lumber, all of the different components and all the things that they learn about it, all the different construction techniques. So we have really good support for training and ongoing training. And then I think we're just, there in really unique ways for our franchisees. Like I'll open up my calendar every single month for the franchisees to do sort of a high level look at their business with me, right? I model it after a fractional CFO that I used for a number of years in my own business here in Jacksonville. And so we'll take a high level look at their business. We'll look at the numbers. We'll look at their close rates. We typically go back 90 days and kind of look at everything. And we look at everything quantitatively. And then I say, okay, now tell me what's really going on. Or we'll start with the qualitative side of the business. And, they'll get advice on, issues that they're having in any aspect of the business. So I think that that's been really valuable. And one of the things that I've seen some of our more successful operators do, like, is to continue to use that along with all of the resources that they have. So, and here lately, our support team has grown to be, I think one of the best support teams around. We have 4 franchise consultants supporting all of our franchisees generally, right? And then we have some very specific support areas that we help with, like purchasing and HR slash training slash we have somebody who's just focused on the operational sort of back office operations, because we have a lot of people who are in like heavy growth mode right now. I mean, we've opened up 60 or 70 franchises over the past 2 years. So those people are in high growth mode. They're bringing on new team members all the time. So we're kind of standing there helping them in any way that we can,
Yeah. No, I love it. Pete, when somebody comes in and thinks about looking at Superior Fence and Rail as a possible franchise opportunity, you're going to be one of the people talking to them. What's maybe a question or almost like, quote, concern somebody's going to go, yeah, this seems good, but like, what's that common thing they're like that they think is the big got you, and then turns out to really not be?
Yeah, so Zach touched on it a little while ago, Tim. Great question. The support team, it's such a quick to scale business, and it ramps. The ramp is dramatic, and it's built to be dramatic. Let me say that. And to have that infrastructure, sometimes I get questions on, do we really need a warehouse person? Can I farm the really common question? Can I farm out the phone to somebody overseas? Nothing replaces the person in your community answering the phone on the first or second ring. So sometimes we get questions on that first 3 months. The business is just starting. Do I have to pay people? Why do I have to pay people for 3 months? And it's really not, because you need them there on month 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as Zach mentioned, it's not promise. It's not easy, but you've got to have those people in place and be ready for it.
Yeah. I always think that the 2 biggest places owners make mistakes, especially early, it's all about following the plan, but they get cheap. They either get cheap on hiring people, right? Do I really need that person? or they get cheap on marketing, and then they're going to complain that they're not getting as much. I mean, it sounds so silly. And then, as you guys well know, you get owners in there. Well, maybe I'll spend a little more marketing down the road, or maybe I'll hire that person that like follow the dang plan. So
Yeah, and it's that marketing. Very often people classify that very quickly as an expense and not foresee it as it's an investment.
yeah, absolutely. Right. Super cool. Last thing I'll throw at you guys, and if you both want to take a stab at it, Zach, Pete, whatever. Is there anything else? And I know there's a ton of things, but we're going to pick one other thing. Well, I really want to make sure everybody knows this about Superior Fence and Rail. What would that be that you want to throw at us?
A lot of franchisors will claim that they're franchisee first. It is franchisee first is one of our top values. Champion the success of franchisees is empower, and then coming from the outside and being with a franchisor and then working with Zach, he eats and breathes franchisee success. All of his priorities are in line with the franchisee first. He has a business. He's very close to the ground. I listen to him on the P&L calls. He's extremely succinct, and is able to dissect someone's business in a matter of minutes after pulling up a P&L, and has all of their best interests in mind every day. Zach's a mentor for me from a franchisee focus, but if you're looking for differentiation, the support and the focus from a franchisor, but also from the brand president are extremely important to the success.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Pete said. Early on, with one of our earliest franchisees, one of my actually my West Point classmates came to us and bought the Palm Beach territory, right? And Eric came from a background of medical sales. I forget. It'll kill me for saying this, but I always forget if it's medical device or pharmaceutical. I think it was device sales. But I don't know if you know anything about that industry, but it's super duper cutthroat. It's very lucrative. Like, he was making great money, but he had this mentality when I first met him, or not when I first met him. I played rugby with him in school, but when we reconnected after so many years of being apart, he had this mentality that like everybody was out to get him. And I'm like, hey man, I'm not out to get you. I'm here to help you succeed, right, and all that stuff. And within a couple of months, we were on a call, and he was like, dude, he's like, I don't think anybody cares about. He's like, I think you care more about my money than I do. He's like, you're like telling me like, don't spend this money. Like, why are you doing this? Like, so, I would agree with what Pete said, that we really, walk the walk when it comes to looking out for our franchisees. And to a fault, I took a personality assessment. It was like a 360-degree evaluation, kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
And one of I got criticized over and over and over again by all these people, and I was actually kind of surprised by how candid the remarks were. Right, I was like, oh God, that's what people think. But one of the things I got criticized for is like, looking out for my own team above like pretty much all else,
Right.
And I was like, well, I mean, I guess that's just kind of how it is. I'm going to look out for my team. And I consider the franchisees to be part of my team. I take it very seriously. I used to lose a lot of sleep. Every time we go into a new market, I would, just have so much anxiety over whether or not, it was going to work out for these folks. Cause I used to be sitting in, when we first got started, I sat in Pete's chair and did the Fran Dev myself with every single person that came through. I'd nurtured them all the way from when they sent their initial email or phone call in about, hey, I'd like to learn more about the franchise concept, all the way through. I was signing their documents for them. I was preparing the documents for signature and sending it out to them, and then immediately starting them through the onboarding process. So I got to know like our first probably 40 or 50 franchisees very well because we would spend a lot of time each week talking about it.
Right.
And I just, so I care greatly about their success. And it's, it's sort of like one of those things you believe it when you see it. But that I think that's what our franchisees would say is like they know that we're committed to their success, and we do a lot. It's but for some of them it's never enough. You know what I mean? I read one of our social forums that we have a Facebook page for our franchisees, just a place where they can kind of communicate and share ideas. And I heard somebody griping about, oh, I wish the franchisor would do this. And I'm like, all right, it's never enough. That's humbling because it's never enough. No matter like no matter how crazy the numbers are, like what we've done. I mean, we've almost we're on track to quadruple in size from the end of where we ended 2021, right? Like that's probably, we'll get really close to that this year. And I still have people telling me like, hey, it could be better. And I'm like, all right, well, good. I'll take that and we'll make it better.
Right. Yeah. Which is like somewhere in there, there's a growth mindset of like, hey, how do we get better? Like, right. From that standpoint. And the beauty for you guys also being part of Empower is, and Pete, you said this, just my experience with them overall, like it's not, they're not blowing smoke. It's genuinely like, how do we help you be successful? And really even being picky on that process of making sure that you're bringing the right people on board. And we all know there are franchise systems and franchisors out there that don't. Doesn't mean you can't still be successful in there, but it is a heck of a lot more on your own than it's going to be when you come in with you guys.
When I came on with Empower, everything rested like right here on my shoulders. I think I grew 2 inches after I came on board with Empower because all of that weight was lifted off my shoulders. Now, it doesn't mean that I can just completely ignore accounting and legal and IT and all that stuff. I still have to stay involved with it and close to it, but it's not my responsibility anymore. It doesn't just like rest entirely on my shoulders. And I think that, this is the part where I think I might take it for granted, right? That I have that whole team behind me, that I've got somebody managing Pete and his efforts in FranDev so that I don't have to, be on top of all those numbers at any given time. I take it for granted a lot that I have that support team behind me, but anytime I really want to question like, oh, should we have divested? Should we have sold the business? Should we have done what we did? I don't have to think about it for too long to realize that what I've got behind me that allows me to just focus entirely on the success of our franchisees, to focus entirely on what obstacles are in their way. Like, it doesn't take me long to figure out like, okay, I wouldn't be where I was without Empower Brands behind us. It's been a phenomenal experience. And for those who are, for those folks out there who are wondering, what the grass on this side of the fence looks like, it really truly is greener. It really is. So
exactly. So and if it's not green, and guess what? Empower's got a brand that'll make the grass green. So we got a brand for that.
Well done.
So super cool, guys. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us about Superior Fence and Rail.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Deb.
Appreciate you.
And as always, thanks to also our loyal podcast followers and listeners. We hope the Franchising 101 podcast continues to provide insight into the amazing possibilities that are out there. When you are ready to schedule a call, and why wouldn't you be? Let's go already. Just remember, there's never any fee for our service. So really, what the heck are you waiting for? francoach.net is our website, franchising101podcast.net. Again, everything with us is .net. It's going to lead you straight to me and then the rest of our team. So please reach out today. Let us help you create your better tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk with you next week.